Appreciate you stopping by the Caption media channel. Very happy to see you here. I'm here to talk about the recently released horror thriller movie Saw X, so let's get started. I'll simply give you a review and I'll avoid giving away any spoilers. Box office statistics first of all. From box offices and retail sales, the franchise has made over $1 billion. Saw X has made $2 million in previews. Despite largely neutral to unfavourable reviews from reviewers, the movie series has been a box office hit. It continues to be one of the most successful franchises in horror cinema history. And one of the best films that we've seen since the start of this movie series is Saw X. This tells a story of a medical issue that has become problematic, drawing on the character's experiences from his previous two involvements. The movie has all the elements one would anticipate from a narrative involving the Jigsaw killer, John Kramer, played by Tobin Bell. Vicious traps lead to the occasional plot twist. Saw X eliminates any absurdity by framing itself as the direct sequel to Saw and delivering a single simplified tale of retribution that follows a straight line of reasoning. The components that made this brand new game distinctive are discovered in its core, and they are redefined with honesty rooted in its backstory when it seems there was nothing else to invent. Unexpectedly, Saw X is actually a fantastic instalment in this 19-year-old genre. It features all the gore, blood, and groan-inducing effects you would anticipate from a Saw movie. The cohesive plot of this edition sets it apart from most others. Plot A, which served as a police procedural in the 9 prior films, would be followed by Plot B, which involves setting victims in traps. While some films centred on a single main character trying to save friends and acquaintances from their own particular destinies, other films were about a group of victims who had to work together to escape their trap as a whole. Co-authors of the story of this film, Goldfinger and Stolberg, change up the formula slightly to offer something unsettling. As a serious performer, Bell is aware that this gory franchise will be what most people remember him for, and he approaches his portrayal of John Kramer, the Jigsaw killer, as though it was Shakespeare. It will be a long time since you have squirmed this much in a movie theatre. Ingenious death traps and a gripping story that keep things straightforward are delivered by director Kevin Grutert and writers Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger by returning to the fundamentals. This is without a doubt the best groomed Saw film to date. Grutert reduces the frantic editing techniques that made the older films look like the blood and guts equivalent of white noise, and so this tale largely makes sense. Saw X, in my opinion, is a strong, grotesquely entertaining installation that breathes fresh life into a franchise that was previously thought to have ended, while also highlighting facets of its most complicated and morally twisted characters. This is a superior Saw movie. It's a massively produced, John Kramer-centred tale that places a strong emphasis on his mentor-protege relationship with Amanda, and it hits the perfect balance between adding to the franchise mythology and standing on its own 2 feet. Critics claim that Grutert's picture restores the essential components that propelled previous films to success. Despite being stuck in the past with nowhere else to go, it managed to be a straightforward, excellent horror movie. Saw X is rather energising since it features a very alive John Kramer, a group of victims who receive just compensation, and Shawnee Smith, a favourite character who makes a triumphant return. According to the marketing for Saw X, Kramer must travel to the nation south of the United States in this Saw movie. It's focused on Mexico. I simply did not comprehend the significance other than one victim meeting a particular fate which is associated in some way with Mexico. It's difficult to ignore the fact that the majority of Kramer's victims are Hispanic, situated in Mexico, and they're exploited by an affluent white woman. There could have been more to celebrate the location setting other than a few landmarks on display. Cinematographer Nick Matthews shoots some good footage of the country. To add to that, Kramer looks at a landscape of the city outside of the city which looks like an actual painting. However, the film depicts these victims in a bad light, and it's a stereotypical one at that. One pops pills, one has a somewhat lascivious lifestyle, and another cleans floors to earn a living wage. It's a very negative and cliched method. On the plus side, there are some fascinating visual features that can be admired. We catch a brief glimpse of Kramer inside an MRI scanner in a short scene. Either Kramer's resurgence as a person or his descent into desperation are implied by the light bursts. A location from the Saw video games from the late 2000s looks exactly like the medical facility set piece, which is intriguing. The movie emphasises how waiting patiently in the dark allows one's true nature to emerge as one of its narrative elements. The only way out of a trap, like with all or most traps in the Saw series, is by pushing oneself out, which necessitates a determination to survive. For instance, Dr. Lawrence Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, saws off his foot to escape the ankle chains in the first movie. It's frustrating to watch since many of Saw X's victims lack such restraint. Life is a careless risk that we, the living, incur. Risk raises issues about how closely we are connected to time at the time of decision. Risking one's life in critical circumstances is an action that advances us since it's based on knowledge that is still unknown. Some of the traps in the movie aren't quite as cruel or dangerous as others are made up to be, so whether someone would actually break bones to get out of them depends entirely on their willingness. Many of these traps are extremely dangerous, even fatal. It forces victims to consider how much of themselves they are ready to renounce. Since they must and should choose between life and death in their final moments, some victims seem unwilling to push themselves, which is a sad inconvenience. In all honesty, my favourite trap is the one that needs wire and bone marrow. Even then, the test of time remains. The movie's storyboard artist is Ivan Yarbrough. The cinematographer is Nick Matthews. Editor of the movie is Grutert. Hugo Hahn and Karen Espinal are two more editors for Mexico City. The assistant editors for Mexico City are Alejo Cardenas and Rocco Ribeiro Mendonza. The film's score and music are created by Charlie Clouser. The supervising sound editor and sound designer is Adam Steen. The editor of sound effects is Dave Rose. The music editor is Simon Miminis. And the film's music directors are Victoria Beard and the Wilders. The jigsaw killer and main character of the movie, John Kramer, is portrayed by Tobin Bell. Amanda Young, Kramer's apprentice, is played once more by Shawnee Smith. A Norwegian doctor called Cecilia Pedersen is portrayed by Sinve Makodi Lund. And Parker Sears, a patient at the treatment centre in Mexico City, is portrayed by Stephen Brand. Gabriella, a different patient in the facility, is portrayed by Renata Vasa. Diego, a cab driver, and Dr. Cortez are both portrayed by Joshua Akamoto. Matteo and Valentina, two nurses at the facility, are portrayed by Octavio Hinojosa and Paulette Hernandez, respectively. Carlos, a little youngster who lives next to the institution, is portrayed by Jorge Brizio. Costas Mandalore appears as Detective Lieutenant Mark Hoffman. Michael Beach portrays Henry Kessler, an acquaintance from Kramer's cancer support group, and Ison Byung-hun Lee portrays a hospital custodian. Katie Barbieri plays the cancer support group leader, while Lucia Gomez Robledo plays an MRI technician. Some detractors claim that while the blood and gore are accurate and apparent, the emphasis on Kramer's frailty and human side is at odds with his terrible judgmentalism. Monsters should be monsters. With 10 chapters under its belt, Saw X definitely provides a franchise high, which is no small task. It's a sequel that uses its streamlined minimalism to highlight the people, and gore has a cosy sense of awareness and humour. Although some reviewers have plainly stated that it would be difficult to call any aspect of Saw X original, the re-entering director Gavin Grutert is aware of what will satisfy his audience: a few buckets of blood and the nauseating sound of crushing bone. The movie largely makes you desire that Amanda would finally get to play the lead role in a Saw movie and win over the audience's worship. Bell's portrayal of John Kramer seems to stand out the most among all the characters in this movie. Devoted viewers may have already learned certain values from earlier films like Jigsaw in 2017 and Saw 4 in 2007 before meeting Kramer. He instills in his victims the idea that the only way to survive is to save oneself, and there's no other way to do it. The actor perfectly conveys Kramer at his most human, although perhaps most vulnerable state, and this is particularly in his interactions with Amanda Young and the Mexican teenager named Carlos. There's a sequence in particular that highlights Kramer's humanity in a way that an AI-powered robot could not. It's enough to convince me that this character might be an anti-hero rather than the objective perception of him as a villain or antagonist or adversary. In Cecilia Pedersen, Kramer does not have as strong as a foe as he does in himself. It's possible that his pursuit of justice is not the wisest course of action in this particular situation. In fact, it nearly gives the impression that he has a white saviour complex. So to sum up, the lost chapter of the Saw franchise, Saw X, is an impressively high-calibre entry. If only we could get more Lawrence Gordon right now. In response to the rhetorical plea, victims reinterpret the dangers of living and not dying. The risk of not dying is a wager in the face of what precisely remains undecidable. Therefore, turning around by rebelling against the light or embracing the darkness is a true risk. It consequently creates a chance for the unexpected to occur. Even though the events aren't done particularly well, Grutert's movie gets this concept correctly. You may lose your mind or breathe throughout this event that will broaden your vision. Saw has established itself as one of the best and most enduring horror franchises since the release of the first film in 2004, ranking alongside other franchises in horror such as The Conjuring and Insidious. Mark Berg and Oren Kouls, the film's producers, have already considered potential sequels. We're kind of superstitious, Kouls said just a few days before to Saw 11's release, when he confirmed the intentions with comicbook.com. We usually try not to plan too far ahead. I'll rate this movie an 8 out of 10 on the critics scale, and I hope you enjoy it. If you enjoyed watching this movie, kindly leave a comment below. If you would like to get additional updates, please subscribe and click the bell symbol. I'm currently heading off. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Auf Wiedersehen.